Hi, this is Paul Schrimpf. I'm executive editor of CropLife magazine here with Eric Sfiligoj, the editor of CropLife magazine, and we're bringing you a new program called CropLife Retail Week. Each week we want to bring you kind of a video summary of some of the key issues we've seen over the past week, and then try and give you a sense for the context as we see it and what it means to retailers. So we had a couple of sizable things going on in the last week. We just returned from the Ag Retailers Association conference. We hosted a roundtable of retailers and got to discussing a number of issues, and there were, of course, a number of really good sessions as well. But first, wanted to, Eric, get your perspective on what the most important things you saw from our retail discussion panel was.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, that was State of the Industry roundtable discussion where we invite key ag retailers that are at the meeting to the event to kind of talk about trends in the marketplace, what they foresee coming up in the year ahead. This year, the two things that struck me the most was the fear that most retailers have that 2015 is not going to be a banner year for their grower customers, which then will translate into lower crop input sales for them. In particular, fertilizers seem to have a lot of concern about the dry fertilizer marketplace. On the flip side, though, we did talk a little bit about precision ag and the promise precision ag is going to be presenting to the ag marketplace in 2015. And there seems to be a lot of excitement around the potential for new products, new offerings, and of course following up with the Monsanto Field Scripts program and seeing what impact that's ultimately going to have on all the ag retailers.
One of the really interesting things at ARA that from my perspective, was hearing Kenny Cordell from Pinnacle speak. And it's a controversial figure, really is one of those love him or hate him kind of guys, but always fascinating to hear what he has to say. Interestingly, a lot of what he said was what we've seen in the industry for a number of years. We've talked about efficiency, we've talked about the need to reduce the number of outlets, and that's something that was kind of a key part of his discussion, was that there's just too many outlets in the countryside. There's too many satellite offices, there's too many branch offices that have been retained even after mergers and acquisitions. And in talking to some people, there was a lot of consensus that that's still very much the case. And it takes a little more discussion. It takes some internal difficult discussion within the cooperative or within the retailer. It takes discussion with communities to make them understand if we're going to be more efficient, that we may have to lose some of the local outlets. But as we move into the future, to be sustainable, retailers are really going to have to begin to do that, and to help the industry move forward and to help to be more sustainable. Another thing we wanted to talk about in this episode was a buying intention survey that we did under the CropLife banner of retailers. And Eric wanted to share a few of those key results that we found on what retailers intend to be working on in terms of purchases this year.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, the buying intention survey we sent out during the fall of 2014. We were basically curious on what retailers were planning to spend their money on and come the new year, and basically asked about the major categories: fertilizer, crop protection, seed, and a little bit about I guess what we'd call stuff, spreaders, sprayers, building intentions, that kind of thing. And we had about 260 ag retailers get back to us with their thoughts. And what was kind of interesting is a lot of what was indicated was kind of borne out by what was talked about in the State of the Industry Roundtable we mentioned earlier. Retailers spent more than $1 million. About half of the respondents spent more than $1 million on fertilizer, dry fertilizer and liquid fertilizer during 2014. The numbers for liquid are going to hold for 2015 in about that same range, 40% range, but for dry it looks like it's only going to be about 27% or so of the retailers plan to spend more money than they did in 2014 on those categories. So it could be a difficult year for the folks that deal in potash and phosphate fertilizers.
Well, certainly a challenging year across the board, setting up for 2015 for retailers and the companies that serve them. That's all we have for this week on CropLife Retail Week. Thanks for joining us.